Okay, so we've talked a little bit about exponents and what the exponential equation looks like, and the most important application of that is in finance. We're just going to look at simple interest today, which is not exponential, but when we get into compound interest, which starts tomorrow, that is exponential, and we're going to look at that in more detail tomorrow. But first, we have to talk about simple interest. So whether you invest money or you borrow money, you're going to have to deal with interest because you're either going to be earning the money on the investment or you have to pay the money on the loan. Okay, so that money that's earned or paid is called our interest. And throughout this unit, we're going to be using these same words over and over and over and over again. So interest is going to be the capital I. It's the cost of borrowing money or the money earned from an investment. Principal with a capital P is the official word for whatever money is started with. Either that's the starting amount of money you borrow or the starting amount of money you invest. Rate is a little r, so that's our interest rate. It's always quoted as a percent, but to calculate, we're going to turn that into a decimal. Time is the little t, and that's the length of time that the money is either borrowed or invested for. In our equations, we must always use years. So in sometimes we're going to have to convert the time. And then amount, which is our capital A, is the total amount. So that's what you've borrowed or invested plus the interest that's earned. So for simple interest, we're going to use that as a separate equation. So like I said, there's two types of interest. Today we're going to focus just on simple interest, which is this equation. Compound interest starts tomorrow. Let's look at our simple interest equation now. Okay, so I just put that terminology back over here. Let's look at interest rate. So remember to turn a percent into a decimal. Remember that percent just means out of 100. So to turn a percent into a decimal, so like 5%, well, we're just going to divide that by 100 to get our decimal. Okay, you can also just think of that as moving the decimal place over 2 times, which is all it is. Time, which is the length of money the time is borrowed for. Sometimes you have to convert the time first. So let's remember that we have 52 weeks in 1 year. We have 365 days in 1 year. And we have 12 months in 1 year. So that's going to come into play when we go to convert. Let's look at our actual equation now. So our simple interest equations where interest is calculated as your starting amount, which is your principal, times your interest rate as a decimal, times time. So let's just label that up a little bit. So I is your interest. So that'll be your dollars. P is your principal. So that's the starting amount. R is your interest rate as a decimal. And that's important. And T is time in years. Okay? Okay, so let's try a question. You're going to put $3,000 into what's called a GIC. That's a type of investment that lots of people have. You invest once, and then after a while, you get the money and the interest back. This GIC is going to pay 4.5% per annum simple interest. So here we've got some more new terminology. Per annum means every year. Oops. So per annum means a year or each year. Okay. How much interest do you earn in 4 years for part A? And then what is the total value after 4 years? So how much interest do you earn in 4 years? So that means we're going to be dealing with our I equals P times R times T equation. How much interest means that this is what we're solving for. P, remember, is starting amount. So our starting amount is going to be the $3,000. So that's going to be our $3,000. R is our rate. So that's going to be our 4.5%. Okay, so we're going to have to convert that. That's our 4.5%. So remember to convert that. You divide it by 100, move your decimal place 2 times, 0.45. And then our time we've got is in years. So the question's already giving me that. So my time is going to be 4 years. So we have all of our pieces of information so we can solve. So I equals PRT, which is 3,000 times 0.045 times 4. So that's going to $540. So we've earned $540 in interest. Therefore, earned $540 in interest. But what's the total value going to be? So our total value, remember from before, we said that our final amount is our starting amount plus our interest. So our total, which is our final amount, is equal to our principal, which is our starting amount, plus our interest. So let's just finish that off over here. So our final amount is our principal plus our interest earned. So let's see, our starting amount was $3,000, so that was our principal. $3,000 plus, we just figured out we earned $540 in interest. Grand total is $3,540. So therefore, you will have $3,540 after 4 years. Okay, let's look at example 2. So what interest is made on a $500 investment? So that means we're starting with $500 in 2 years. So there's our time. Invested at 2.5% simple interest. So that's going to be our rate. So we know we're dealing with simple interest. So we've got the equation I equals P times R times T. I like to list out my letters on the side to help organize what's happening in the word problem. So what interest? So that's my question mark. My principal is what I start with. So that's my 500. So my 500 is my P. 2 years is my time. So I've got that. My interest rate is the 2.5%. So I have to divide that by 100 to get 0.025. Okay. Now I have all my pieces. I can see right off the bat. I have 1 question mark, 1, 2, 3 numbers. So my interest is 500 times 0.025 times time. Calculate that. And you've earned an interest of $25. Therefore, you earned $25 in interest. Okay, we're going to practice converting percents to decimals before we do another word problem. Because this is so important, we're doing it in every question. So we want to show the interest rates as they would appear in the formula, which means that instead of percent, we need a decimal. So that means that we divide by 100, or you can just move the decimal places 2 steps to the left. You'll get the same answer. So let's try that. So 13% means divide by 100, 0.13. And you can see that happened if I had taken my decimal place from here and moved it 1, 2 spots. So 13%, 1, 2 would give me 0.13. Let's try this one. Divide it by 100, 0.025, or you can think of it as 2 decimal places, 1, 2, 0.025. Okay, the last one. Sometimes you're only getting 0.5% when interest rates are low. This is quite possible. Divide it by 100, and you get 0.005. Or if we had moved our decimal place, 1, 2, 0.005. Well done. Okay, how about when time isn't given to you in years? So let's do an example where we're just practicing converting these things into years. So if I want to turn months into years, we have to remember that 1 year has 12 months. So to turn this into years, I'm going to divide by 12 months. 24 divided by 12 means 2, so my answer here would be years. 8 months, again, we're going to divide that by 12, and this time it's just part of a year, so we'll get a decimal. And it's just going to give me a funny big long decimal, so let's just round that to 0.67 years, because it's 2/3 of a year. 14 weeks, well, let's think about that. In a year, we've got 52 weeks in 1 year. So we're going to divide that by 52. And that's going to give us 0.14 divided by 52 gives me 0.269 years, right? And it should be a small decimal because 14 weeks is definitely not even close to half a year. And last but not least, we've got one that's just days. So let's remember that we have 365 days in 1 year. For the purposes of this course, we're ignoring that there's such a thing as leap years. Okay, so here we're going to do 82 divided by 365. So 82 divided by 365 is 0.22 years. Okay, so now let's do this example. We want to find out how much interest is earned if we have $2,000 invested at 4% simple interest. So that means I'm going to be using this equation for 26 weeks. So I'm going to take my simple interest equation and I'm going to say I, P, R, T, because those are all my variables. And I'm going to go back into the question and we're going to pick out our information. So calculate how much interest, so that means that my interest is the question mark, is earned if $2,000 is invested. So this is my starting amount. Okay, so my P is going to be 2,000. We've got a 4%. So as soon as I see percent, I know that's my rate. And like we just practiced, turn that into a decimal. And 26 weeks. So there's my time. Here I'm telling you it's just for 26 weeks, so we have to turn that into years. So remember there's 52 weeks in a year. So my time in this case is 0.5, right? Because 26 is half of 52. And now we can calculate how much interest has been earned. So we start with our equation, I equals PRT, pop in our numbers. So we've got 2,000 times 0.04 times 0.5. Pop that in your calculator. And you've earned $40 in interest. How much is the investment worth in total? So for part B, we want our total. So my total worth is going to be my final amount, which is my initial plus the interest. So final is your principal, your starting amount, plus your interest, right? Because you get your money back plus whatever you earned. So that final amount is going to be equal to 2,000 plus 40. So you end up with a final amount of $2,040. Therefore, you earned $40 in interest for a total of $2,040.